You decided to be self-reflective about this and take a look at how you were approaching your own productivity, your own life, and so on. And you write about something called Inbox Zero, and saying that you've squandered countless hours, not to mention money and so on, thinking that if you could just find the right time management system, that, you apply the sufficient amount of self-discipline, you might be able to win the struggle with time. Like you could finally have this well-ordered life in which you accomplished all your goals. And one of the things you tried was something called the 25-minute, or no, you call it the Pomodoro technique, which involves 25-minute blocks of productivity. Can you tell us what that is? Because you tried different methods to figure out, is there one that works the best?
Yeah, and partly it was because I was writing this newspaper column, right, where I got to test them all out. It was, in some ways, really bad because I had the opportunity every week, to try some new self-help system and believe that finally now this was going to be the one that did it for me. The Pomodoro technique, it's actually not a bad system, but when I encountered it, I got totally tangled up because I thought I was going to find the perfect system. And guess what? Like all the other systems, it isn't the perfect system.
So what is it, for 8 hours a day? You break it up into 25-minute blocks with little breaks?
If you want to get technical about this, it is you work for 25 minutes and take a 5-minute break, and you do that 4 times in a row, and then you take a longer break. And you do as many of those whole things as you can get done in your working day, which is probably only like 2 or 3 when you actually think about it for a real working day or with a lunch break or whatever. Again, fine, sure, absolutely. It's good to have these little systems for bringing a little bit of order to your work day if it doesn't have any order. The problem, and I don't think this was just me, is in all sorts of different ways, people are always telling themselves that, like, they're almost there. They're almost on top of things. Like in a week or a few months, they're gonna have things in working order. That feeling of like, I'm gonna get to the place where it feels easy to go through the day, and I'm not always on the back foot, always fighting against time. And yeah, one of the things I'm trying to say in the book is that attitude of trying to win the fight against time. Like that's a big part of the problem, and actually just leads to more fighting and less.
Now,
happiness.
what about, okay, so I'm talking about this from the perspective of, Megyn Kelly, and I do have responsibilities, and I have, a large amount of data that I need to manage in order to be good at my job. But I'm not like a doctor where it's like, oh no, you must read all those emails or someone could die. You don't get the test result back in time. There are many jobs out there where you absolutely do have to read all your stuff, and the vast majority of things that come into you must be responded to. You're a teacher, can't blow off half the parents who write to you, not for very long, and keep your job, right? So how are those people supposed to apply this, sort of being a little bit more relaxed about it to their own lives?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it does come up because people think like, well, okay, it's all very well saying that this is a ridiculous situation that we put ourselves in today. But hey, if you are in that situation, you've got to respond, like you say. I think that the thing to understand here is I'm really trying to look at the ways in which we put impossible demands on ourselves, and also our corporations and our society makes these demands too. But like we expect something of ourselves that we literally cannot do, which is to, in a world of sort of infinite potential emails, to be able to answer them all, in a world of infinite potential uses with our time, for our time, to be able to get around to them all. And if the demands being made of you are genuinely impossible, then it doesn't matter if you think you have to do them. Like, they're impossible. And the clue is in the word. And you're still going to have to triage. You're still going to have to make sacrifices here or there. So that teacher who's getting all those emails from parents and has 100 other lesson plans and to do, they still can't actually do an infinite amount. They still have 24 hours in a day, which they can't use all of for work anyway. So you still have to make tough choices when it comes to time in almost any walk of life. And part of what I'm trying to get at in the book is I think we pursue all these ways of like avoiding that. We don't want to feel what it feels like to have to make tough choices with our time. We want to believe that soon, and with the right systems or the right, amount of self-discipline that we're going to find somewhere, that we could avoid having to make tough choices. And I think we all like it's worth it for anybody, whatever their walk of life, to see that like that's not gonna work. Like you do have
maybe
to
it's
confront
take
reality.
the time to create the time for yourself. In other words, if you're a teacher, maybe you do an automatic notification of, during the day, I am busy teaching your children, and therefore I will not be checking email except for once at noon, or something like whatever, some way of managing it so that you can do the thing that is most important to you and you don't have to worry, I'm blowing off important people or important things. But that, even just doing that would take time to figure out, how do I manage the week and the amount of data and demands on me? That system actually has worked well for me in my life too. If you can figure out who you can stiff arm early on in your week, it's brilliant.
Yeah, and expectation management is so important, because there's something in the way technology works and the way modern life is just getting faster and faster that leads us all to think that everything has to be instantaneous, that you're failing if you don't reply to an email within an hour of receiving it or something. Time and again you see, and I think you see this in the research studies, not just anecdotally, people are fine with things moving a little bit more slowly as long as they can depend on you and trust. So if you're someone who always gets back to people, it's more important that you're someone who always gets back to people, usually, than that you always get back to them incredibly fast. And it's way better that you get back to them in 24 hours than that you're occasionally someone who's responding in minutes, and then other times you just they get no response for months on end. So it's there's a lot to be said for figuring out the expectations that people have. And then, if what you're doing, if there's something in your work that is the most important thing, if you're a teacher, it's teaching kids, whatever it might be,
now
eventually you're just going to have to...
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Eventually you're just going to have to make time for that thing and let the chips fall where they will with the other stuff, because otherwise, what's the point of doing that job?
Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.